Episode 28 of The Messenger, the Rachel Cancer Scam. Today, we have part 2 of my interview on the Pretend podcast with Javier, the full uncut version. The full video version of this podcast is available on our YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes. I do welcome your comments and your questions. You can feel free to send direct messages to me through our Instagram page. I do read all messages myself. Let's pick up now with the interview with Javier.
Why would she do all this? Was it money? Was it power? What was it? What's her motivation? Attention?
It's attention. I never got enough attention. I have a tape where she says, I've never been good enough. I'm never good enough. For my entire life, everyone has turned their back on me. And then I look back at the messages that she and I exchanged while she was in the hospital, where she'd say things like, all I ever wanted was to be loved like you love me. All I've ever wanted is to be enough for one man. Every man has cheated on me. All the nonsense. Like when you look back at it, you go, oh God, everyone's loved you. And you're the only one that cheated. And you cheated multiple times. You cheated on Mark 10 times while you were married to him. The way that they deflect and send stuff back to you for attention. That's it. Javier, there was a little bit of money, a few $1,000. There was a ring, so maybe I'm in 10 grand and the hotel that I stayed in. I mean, I was in more than that, but it wasn't, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Not for that, not to fuck my life up for years. Think about this. I got involved with her, really involved 4 years ago in August of 2021. We're now sitting here in September of 2025. I went from 2 years of thinking she had cancer to now a year and a half of doing this podcast. I lived this, and I've lived this every day. I need a break. I'm done. I not only lived this and went through it, I went and spent the next almost 2 years. In December, it'll be 2 years going back to tell the story.
Yeah, you're unpacking it now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, and one day you won't even want to talk about this story because you're doing it now. It's like not here, but I'm just saying like during this time period, right? Like hopefully you'll move on, right?
I did 2 interviews in one day. I did the Juicy Scoop and I did Billy Bush, and I was exhausted after Juicy Scoop, and then I went and did Billy's, and then that night I drove home from LA because I was so mentally exhausted. You and I have been sitting here for an hour and a half, and I know I'm just talking and it probably sounds ridiculous to those of you listening. How difficult is it to have a conversation? When it's emotional stuff and when it's like this, it takes a shit ton out of you to tell it. And I tell it every day.
Yeah.
Right?
By the summer and fall of 2022, that's where she claimed she was hospitalized.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
June 5th, 2022 is the day that she texted me in the morning and said, I woke up this morning and my heart, it hurts physically and I can't move my arm and something's wrong. And I thought, man, she, left arm, heart attack. She thought she was displaying signs of a stroke. Like, imagine that. I'm 7 hours away. And then she's rushed to the hospital, and that began the 563-day hospital stay. I was sitting in my backyard, and I couldn't hold the phone by the time she got to the ambulance, I couldn't hold it. I put it between my legs, and I had my both hands holding my head like this. And I was just looking at the phone for updates. Like, please text me, please text me, please text me. Please let me know you're alive. When I think about awful moments in this, I think about not knowing whether someone else was going to pick up her phone and say, I'm sorry she didn't make it. Those are stories. That's where it gets difficult. That's where it gets emotional. Not because of how much I loved her, but because of, at this point, what it did to me. Yeah. And how upsetting it was. That's been one of the most traumatic things for me, is listening to my podcast back. I don't know if you finished episode, season 1 completely, but there's some stuff with my dad, and there's some stuff with her being pronounced dead that are just things that are so brutal, and I'm really upset, and I can't listen to myself get upset. That's one of the things that I just can't do because it causes me to get upset.
Yeah, it brings it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's crazy. So she's, I guess, during this time period, is that when she gets paralyzed?
Yeah, what happened is she went into the hospital in June 5th, and that begins this stay for the next year and a half. And all these things happen. Intense chemotherapy. They decide to start radiation. This is where the Harry Loves Rachel stories begin, because those came out of radiation, because she was in such a panic when she went in. We claimed that she wanted to hear my voice every day. Tell me a story. They started with me just recording into my phone, just a voice note. I'm here. I'm waiting for you. I love you. I can't wait to marry. Just saying things. And then, I went to the place where I, had to go to, which was, reading some books and doing things to distract. I bought a series of 200 meditations. I sat and recorded 200 meditations for her. My voice saying, close your eyes. Imagine yourself on an island, right? Like that, you know what I mean? And that's what I did to distract, to support, to do that. So the radiation happens, and then she gets these tests, and every one of the tests is all bad news. There's no hope of getting out. The cancer's growing. The cells are growing. Now I have a tumor in my intestines, and I have one in my throat. And the next thing you know, she's got a brain tumor. And then by December, they're going to operate on the brain tumor. She doesn't want to do it. She's adamant. She doesn't want to go to brain surgery.
And can you visit her at the hospital if you want?
Protective isolation, according to her.
What does that mean?
It means white suits, one doctor in per shift. You can look it up. It happens.
I mean, this is like during COVID too, so you got that going on. And
think about Boy in the Plastic Bubble for a minute. The Juicy Scoop girl, Heather, brought that up, and I said I'm old enough to have watched that on an ABC Friday night movie, right?
Me too. Yeah.
And this was Girl in the Plastic Bubble. I wasn't smart enough to say, you know what, I'm coming to the hospital. I don't give a fuck. I'll stand in your window and tap on the window, and I'll just be there. And the brain surgery, she's back and forth. And then we have this conversation. This is one of the cruelties of this whole thing. She's like, well, I don't want to have the brain surgery. I'd rather let the cancer take me. And I had to talk her into the brain surgery. Like, I'm talking her into nothing, as it turns out. Like, the whole thing was just a goddamn scam. So anyway, she has the brain surgery, and then she has to have multiple other brain surgeries after that, because there's scar tissue and there's memory loss. And it was this cascading series of events of nothing but bad news from June 5th, 2022 through December 20th of 2023, one after another. I could tell you horror stories, alleged SAs at the hospital at the hands of doctors, chemo and radiation on the same day, paralysis because of the neuropathy in her legs because she can't walk and has been bedridden, bed sores, burns on her body from her heart stopping from where they defibrillated her. I mean, there's one after another. I pick a story, like I should have a wheel, like spin the wheel, we'll stop at a story and I'll tell you a story. Like one of those.
It's crazy, man. And so, like we could glance over this, but like the whole Dave Matthews thing, she's watching this live stream, but meanwhile she's really at a concert with Mark, wearing your engagement ring. But this kind of the whole. Let's jump into Mark's timeline for a second, because you think one thing's happening, but she's really still with Mark, and that finally comes to a head. What happens there?
When for some perspective on the setup with Mark met and married Rachel in 2002, very quickly, and they had kids beginning in 2005. They had 4 kids. And during this time, in the first technical real year of marriage after the second marriage, on May 27, 2003, Rachel leaves and marries Brian. Rachel is caught by Mark. Mark calls her phone. Brian answers. Who's this? I'm her husband. Who's this? I'm her husband. I'm her husband. Both guys are her husband. They reconcile at that point in 2003, and they're able to figure things out, and they move forward. In 2006, Rachel has an affair with a guy who's running the Special Olympics in Santa Clarita. We believe that man to be the father of her child. Rachel's sister sees what's going on with the two of them because they went and did a cold plunge together. She is suspicious. She confronts Rachel. It starts nonsense. 2011, 2012, Rachel begins the affair with the guy who ends up meeting Mark's mother at the house they share while Mark is out of town. It's another affair. Mark's mother says to Mark, I can't be around this. She's cheating on you. That man slept in our home. He ends up having to deal with that. She leaves. Mark has had to deal with uncertainty at a minimum, but the knowledge of cheating early on, yes. But he thought they reconciled. When all of this happened in December 15th of 2023, 5 days before she was caught with me, Mark is angry. Rachel's been disappearing, not home a lot, telling Mark she's with friends, with coworkers. Mark, at that point, decided to utilize Find My Phone and realizes Rachel's at a home in Paso Robles up the road. He goes, bangs on the door. Rachel's car's in the driveway. It's Russ in his pajamas, no shoes and no shirt, and, hey, I'm looking for my wife. And Rachel doesn't come out eventually. She comes out. She goes home. The couple end up, with a shitty situation on their hand because she's been caught now. He doesn't know to what extent she's been cheating. 3 days go by. Mark decides to go to the airport because he knows that this guy, where Rachel was caught, Russ, works at the airport. So he pulls up to the airport, and what's Rachel doing when he gets there? She's in an embrace with Russ. It's like, what the hell is this? Mark gets out of his car. A fist fight ensues. The guys each end up knocking each other down. Rachel's in the middle of it. It's a shit show on federal property, by the way. Then, that's December 18th. 2 days later, Mark goes to pick up the daughter formerly known as Madison. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're not following along, she's the daughter formerly known as Madison because when Rachel was a stripper and an escort, her name was Madison. And then she had the audacity to name her first daughter her stripper name.
After her stripper name.
This would be a mic drop moment. This would be like, hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after these messages.
Oh, my God.
So Mark goes to pick Madison up on December 20th at the airport. She's coming home from the college on the East Coast that she's attending. And Mark's got a scratch on his face and his glasses are busted up. And she said, what happened? And Mark said, I had a fight with Mom's boyfriend. And Madison says, Harry? Mark says, who the fuck's Harry? I had a fight with Russ. Madison pulls out her phone. She's got screenshots of stuff from a couple years ago. And that starts this whole thing. And then all of a sudden, Rachel's been caught, not with one, but with two men inside of 5 days. Imagine that. She's not only, she's got like two different guys and the husband she's fooling. And then the lies at the airport are going on about her being a pilot. And then she's exposed with the cancer scam. Like, she has got an ulcer-inducing thing happening in her life now, something to the degree that most people will never even know.
You talk about her almost as an assassin that kills off all these people throughout her life. And we kind of touched on some of them, but it was really interesting to hear it the way you talked about it. Like, all these people that quote-unquote died in her wake.
I call them Rachel killings, Rachel murders. In order to facilitate her story, she ended up killing a bunch of people off. The reference I make, I think in episode 1 or episode 2, I say that Rachel has killed off so many people in our story that if the killings were real, she would be the most prolific female serial killer of our time, rivaling her peer, another sex worker, Eileen Wuornos. Right? You saw Monster. Yeah. You know the story. You're a true crime guy.
Yeah.
She began killing people off. She killed her sister. She killed Bobby. She killed Bobby's parents. She killed Laura. She killed our baby. Her tradecraft was killing people off. She did this as part of the story to garner sympathy from me. Like, oh my God, Rachel, you've had such a tragic life. And then your dear friend Laura dies, colon cancer, and she takes her own life. And you had this client, Samantha, and this client, Stacy, and both of them, one took a life, one was killed by her brother. Your sister in the car crash. And like, you go through it and you go, she's created this incredible life of tragedy. And not one bit of it is true. She's an emotional assassin. That's my point with that. She is a woman that waterboarded me emotionally. I got to a place several different times that were so dark for me that I thought I was going to end my life. Literally, you and I are both dog guys. I'm thinking I've got to reach out to the people that watch my dog, and I've got to tell them I'm leaving town for a couple of days to know that he's going where he belongs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of, like, I'm getting emotional now thinking about it. Like, this is just shitty. Like, I don't even want to say this is what she did to me. This is what I allowed to happen because my heart was unprotected. That's the moral of the story, right? Like, this can happen to anyone.
The worst part, the tragedy in the story is you allowed somebody in your life, you allowed yourself to love somebody, and now you mentioned that you do have a new relationship, but I doubt, and I don't know you, I just bet you, that you'll ever allow yourself to fall that deep with somebody again.
I don't want to utter those words to the woman I'm seeing, but the reality is that, I'll never allow myself to be in that spot again. And I love the girl that I'm with. She's delightful, and she's sweet, and she has been with me. The entire existence of our relationship has been the Rachel cancer scam. She's in this picture right here.
Yeah, I was going to
of us. That's her. Yeah. And she's adorable, and she's sweet, and she just loves me and just wants to be with me. And the feeling is mutual. And I don't know that I'll ever get married. And I don't know what forever means at this point. I jokingly say to her, why do you threaten me with a life sentence? Like, I know that's not what any woman wants to hear, but, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I found someone that I trust. And we both live simple existences, and I'm grateful for that. But with this thing with Rachel, when people say, I'm sorry this happened to you, we were talking about Mark a minute ago and all of this with Mark and him finding out. One of my go-to answers when people say, I'm so sorry this happened to you, you poor guy, I can't believe she would do this. I always say the same thing. I deflect. And I say, well, imagine for a minute what it's like for her actual husband, still husband, guy who still can't get his divorce done yet. For 22 years, he was married to a woman that lied at every turn, that had 10 affairs, that faked pregnancy. She faked 11 pregnancies that week.
So tell us about like that transition from season 1 to season 2. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And
why can't he get a divorce? Like
they're in process. It's going on right now. It's an ugly fight.
Your perspective on the first season is really spot on. It was a diary because it started quite literally within days of me finding out that she was a liar about everything, and that hurt, that pain from thinking I didn't just fall in love out of the blue with someone one day. I knew her for 20 plus years. So imagine having someone in your life, Javier, that you've known for 20 plus years, and then one day out of the blue you find out, I don't care if you're involved with them romantically or not, even a friend, and you find out they're a scammer, a serial killer, or, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God. Like, so it was written out of emotion, and there was sadness. I know you want to talk about the end of the season. There were things in episodes 10 and 11 that made me emotional. I couldn't listen to them when they came back to me from being produced because it made me upset.
Yeah, I think it was episode 11. You broke down several times trying to just do a take, right? And that's how raw it was.
It was the story. Yeah. It was the story. It was, once upon a time, there was a girl, right? And it was like, I'm reading it thinking, I'm saying to everyone that I'm okay, but clearly I'm not. I can't even read a story that I wrote.
You know, you look like a tough guy. You probably are a tough guy, but you're like a big softy. I'm kind of a big softy too, and not afraid to kind of show your emotions. But isn't it kind of interesting? And not just this situation, but like throughout your life, we're tough people when we deal with things, right? And then there's these unknown triggers that like certain things will just like, it's like you touch a nerve and you get emotional, right? Like, isn't that weird what triggers it? Sometimes it's not the most obvious thing.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to encourage you to follow our social media. I'd recommend you follow Instagram. In the show notes, you'll find a link to all of them. There's a lot more information and backup for what I'm discussing. Much of the evidence that I reference in these episodes here, you'll find there. You'll see screenshots, additional commentary in the way of videos. I also want to encourage you to comment and send along a DM if you've got questions. I answer everything that comes my way. Also, please take a moment to rate the podcast here. Leave a review if you're so inclined. Thanks for following. In this episode, we'll continue after this message.
That triggers these like the waterworks, you know what I mean?
I don't tend to be that guy that people pick at when they see me or hear me talk. But there are things that I talk about. I can go from that to, oh my God, listen to what she did about my father. And I can't, like, I have to catch my breath before I start it. That transition anyway from season 1 to season 2, it was emotion. It was my dad. It was her faking her death. It was coming to the realization that it wasn't just me, it was all these other guys. And it was just all coming while the season was going on. I'm talking to Madison, I'm talking to Mark, trying to convince him to come on the podcast. Like it's such a fluid situation. Season 2 is more relaxed. Like I'm at episode 24 as we sit and record this. Like I don't know when this is going to end. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited that it's gone to a kind of a different space. I don't want to have to talk about the cancer story anymore. I want to talk about her criminal activity. I want to talk about what she's doing to obstruct justice. I want to talk about the anger part of it for me, which is not what she did to me necessarily, but what she's done to everyone in her life. There's not a relationship in her life that hasn't been touched by this.
Yeah.
Understand that.
And let's talk about that, because the end of season 1, you receive a call. Was it a call? Was it an email? I forget.
It was a message. Rachel's youngest daughter and I communicated through words with friends.
Interesting. She's texting you all these things like as she's dying. And
yeah.
I mean, when did you figure that part out?
I didn't know it until the day that Mark called me and the cat was out of the bag. You know, that's the way the season ends. The season ends with Rachel coding and then the voicemail from Mark.
Tell me about how that happened.
563 days after her ambulance ride to French Hospital, on that day, I had not been hearing from her over the last month very much, sometimes once a week or twice a week. Remember, we had gone every single day, all day long, texting and, you know, the brain surgeries and this, and she was feeling weak and whatever. She made every excuse, but I hadn't been hearing from her a lot. So on that day, my office called me and said, I've got Mark so-and-so on the phone. And I said, send it to voicemail. I was shocked for a minute. I'm like, send it to voicemail. What does he want? And then I watched my blood pressure on my watch go up when I saw the phone call come in from him. And I'm like, at this point, all I know about Mark is that he is the guy that beat the shit out of her in 2012. And I thought, he's calling because he knows I'm involved with her, and this is going to be ugly. This is going to be ugly for him. It ain't going to be ugly for me. That's the mode I go into. I went from really emotional and really sad stuff to like, what do you want? Let's go outside and discuss it. That's where I go. And I call him back. I said, hey, Mark, it's Harry. What can I do for you? And then it dawned on me like, oh, this could be the call that Rachel's dead.
Yeah.
We saw your information, whatever. And he said, I understand you know my wife.
Your
I
wife?
said, I know your what? I said, I don't know why the fuck you're calling me. What the nature of your phone call is, but she's not your wife. She left you 12 years ago when you
And
beat
you're
the shit out of
engaged
her.
to her.
He said, what are you talking about? He said, who is she to you? I said, she's my fiance. And he said, fiance? Really? He said, when's the last time you saw her? I said, I saw her before the day she started cancer treatment on May 5th of 2022 in Santa Barbara, the last time we saw each other, and she's in the hospital now in protective isolation. And he said, the hospital? She's never been sick a day in her life. And I said, you don't know what you're talking about. And he said, I'm not looking to fight with you. He said, this phone number you're calling me from, it's your cell phone? I said, yeah. He sends me a video of Rachel walking in the house, the Ring camera the night before, with roses in her hand from her new boyfriend, Russ. And then he said to me, do you know the name Russ so-and-so? And I said, no, I don't know that name. I said, who is that? He said, that's Rachel's boyfriend. That's where I found her last week. And she's been there for like the last couple months, on and off, every night. And I'm like, this is a lot to digest. I got to get back to you. Give me a minute. So I text Rachel. I said, do you know Russ so-and-so? She responds to me immediately. She said, no, I don't know who that is. And I said, are you sure you don't know Russ? And I give his last name. She said, I have no idea who that is. Pause. And then I said, I just got a call from Mark. You know, your husband, Mark. And she said, what did he want? He's been coming around causing trouble. I said, coming around the ICU? Coming around the hospital? Coming around where? Like
You were the girl in the
what?
bubble, like not too long ago.
Yes, yeah. And at this point, I'm like, you want to screw around? You want to be sarcastic? You want to lie? Let's go. You're not sick. You were never in the hospital. You never had cancer. You're not paralyzed. You never had any brain surgery. Where are you right now? She said, Harry, my situation has recently changed, and I've chosen not to include you. I'm sorry. I've been sitting in this house for 563 days, sleeping with a phone underneath my pillow every night, waiting for a call that you may die. You may not have made it. I need to get to the hospital. I need to come say goodbye. And you send me a message by text after I find out that you're a fucking liar? What do you do with that? How do you reconcile that? I wanted to spend my life with her. I was looking online to order a special bed and to do some handicap, stuff around the house and ways to accommodate her when she could get out of the hospital. Like I'm looking at the future, and she's looking at her next con. I can't explain it to you any better than that. So when the season began for season 2, I was pissed. You heard it at the end of episode 1 where I said, this is a game to her. And in Rachel's game, the only person that wins is Rachel. And it wasn't for maybe another 7 months or 8 months. And then I saw her in court and I testified on Mark's behalf. And she wouldn't even look at me when I saw her after that. She couldn't look at me. Denied a relationship. Said there was never anything between us. She was never engaged. There was never love. Only saw me once or twice. Just a lying piece of shit. Just like in open court. Like you and I would never think about going to court and putting our hand on a Bible and uttering a lie. But perjury is a pretty serious penalty. People go to prison or jail for it.
What's interesting is that you probably consider yourself a pretty smart guy. You told Mark in the podcast, you're like, you're a smart guy. How did you fall for this? And he's like, well, maybe not anymore. It's that feeling of being betrayed. That's where the anger comes from, right? It's like now you feel like a dummy. You made me feel stupid.
I'm thinking this is an opportunity for the keyboard warriors to go, he's not smart, he's stupid, he ignored red flag. What I mean? The haters, the keyboard people are going to do that. I feel like I'm a man of reasonable intellect. And I'm logical. When it comes to matters of the heart, people get stupid real quick.
Because, I mean, love, you're supposed to let your guard down, right?
I loved her with every fiber of my being.
Tell me more about your conversation with Mark, and then I want to move on to her daughter, because that was a really eye-opening conversation too. But what was that interaction as you're piecing the story together with Mark? Like, what's going through your mind? Like,
It's disbelief. After I had the exchange with Rachel, I called Mark back. And we had a quick conversation. Then he told me that he had caught Rachel at Russ's house. He took me through that night. About 2 hours later, he called me, and all the girls, all 4 daughters, and Mark and I were on the phone. Because 5 days before that, the 15th of December is when he caught Rachel at Russ's house. There had been a fight at the airport when Mark went and saw Rachel on December 18th. And then 2 days later, he found out about me from Madison. She is a thrill seeker.
yeah,
She has to.
because it's
And something else happened between the last time you and I talked. I'm going to break it with you here in a minute, too. And that is that there's another guy that she faked cancer and pregnancy with. I think I touched on this with you. Since you and I talked, he and I had a conversation. They had an affair in 2011 and 2012. Rachel and Mark were still married. During that affair, Rachel became pregnant, not once but twice. The second time she lost the baby, she told him that she had cancer just before that happened. By the way, I got the ashes in the urn. What she told him she was doing was she had lost the babies, and she was buying a cemetery plot in San Luis Obispo. Like, oh my God, with the bullshit. So the guy and I finish up our interview. He tells me that he got fed up with her excuses. At one point, Rachel said there's a CPS investigation involving one of my daughters. A broken arm, Mark's not cooperating. I can't see you because I have to spend all my time with my daughter. If you remember in my story in season 1, I told you that Rachel created that thing with CPS. So he gets the same story, different incident, the evolution of the scam, right? She did that in 2011 or 12. So he eventually gets sick of it and says, I can't do this anymore, and breaks up with her. The next day after the interview's done, he texted me, he said, hey, I just remembered something I need to tell you. And he said, after I broke up with Rachel, the way she got back to communicating with me is she faked her own near-death experience. She claimed through a friend of hers to have had a skydiving accident where her chute didn't open and she went careening to the earth, and she had broken ribs and broken legs. And of course, they didn't know if she was going to wake up, and she had memory loss. So she didn't remember who this guy, I refer to him as Wells Fargo Man, she didn't remember who Wells Fargo Man was. And the reason that they got in touch was Rachel had this guy text her, alleged friend, text from his phone saying, I found your name and your picture in Rachel's phone, and I wanted you to know she had an accident, and I know that you're important to her because there's a heart emoji next to your name. That's just what she did to me with Laura 2 years later in 2012.
So it's like refining the scam.
She gets it down. It's a perishable. It's like playing guitar. It's a perishable skill. If you don't pick that guitar up every day, you're not going to get any better, right? You pick that guitar up every day, you're going to get better.
So tell me about Madison, because I thought that was a pretty mind-blowing story about her name change. Like, she's coming to you now, you're talking to her, and she knows the truth about her mom at this point. And tell me about the origins of her name, Madison, and where that came from.
Yeah. When I met Rachel in 2001 in Houston, she was working as an escort. She was also working as a dancer and a model in adult men's magazines. I didn't know the dancing and modeling part. But when I was introduced to her, she introduced herself as Madison. And then we had our one encounter, paid for it, and then she gave me her real name and her phone number, and that was it. I never knew her as Madison ever again. Fast forward to 2012 when we reconnect. And she said, I've had 4 kids, and she's kind of going through, this is my life. I did the same thing. And I said, what are your kids' names? And she said, my oldest is Madison. And we kind of laughed about it. I'm like, wait a minute, you named your daughter after your escort stripper model name? Really?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Thought that was kind of odd. But she said, I always like the name, and she doesn't know. She doesn't have to know. And then Madison finds out, like, after all this shit goes on, after Rachel's exposed and all of this garbage is starting to come out, the story of Madison's name comes out, like with Rachel using it, because I talked about it in the podcast. So Madison found out that way. And she said to her father, she said, did Mom use this name? Was Mom a sex worker? And Madison at that point said, I got to change my name. And that's why I started calling her the daughter formerly known as Madison, because she hates that. You can't, if you talk to her now and you call her Madison, don't call me that. I hate that name. And by the way, she doesn't refer to Rachel as Mom.
Yeah.
She refers to her as Rachel, like a lot of kids that were abused
And
do.
why do you think if her kids knew about a lot of these things that were happening, I mean, not that they were responsible for outing their mother, but why do you think they went along with it or perpetuated the story?
There are 2 pieces to that I think are important. One is that all 4 girls didn't know about me. Only Madison knew about me
Right.
because she found a note in the car and the flowers. She did her own work. Then after all this was exposed and then my social media came out and the podcast came out, the 3 girls that are in the house with her, and I have been very careful, and I don't want anyone to bully her kids, and I want to say this very carefully and respectfully. It's important to me. But take it for what it's worth, her youngest daughters are like the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, right? They're just doing the witches.
Well, and they're victims
bidding
in this story
in
too, right? Because like, there's
Completely.
no reality where she's fucking with you and fucking with all these other guys, and then having a completely normal relationship with her children, right? Like, they have to have been manipulated too, right?
There's no normal. You talk to those girls, and I don't talk to them. I've gotten a couple messages from one of them. But you talk to those girls now, and their lives are completely fucked up. Like, in this town that they live in, I just found out. I mean, we're working on this second part on the 10th of October, probably a month after we did the first one. And I literally just found out on the 9th of October that Rachel has still not been to work since May. I think Rachel's at the point right now where she's afraid to show her face.
You know, we talked about this
And-
last time. You were gonna send me her contact. I don't know if you did or not, but you doubt
I
that,
will.
like, at this point, you think she's in hiding?
I'll tell you that she was on the news. There was a story that she gave to the news. I don't want to give you too much
Oh, yeah,
information.
you'll
I'll send you
right,
the link
right.
personally offline. But for those listening, Rachel was bold enough to put herself on the local news. There was a story she wanted the news to know about, something related to her family. And in the middle of this, like 4 months ago, she goes on the television news, blonde Rachel in Paso Robles, talking about X story. And I'm like, are you dumb enough in the middle of this podcast and social media that your entire town has learned about to put yourself on the news? And yeah, she did. Starve for attention. But she is not working. I think she's afraid to show her face at the airport. The reason she's on leave is so she can have her benefits. She's concocted this story so I can travel for free, but I don't have to go to work because I'm a
Well, and I'm not going to include
was
this,
injured.
but what was her role at the airport? Like, what did?
You can include it. She's a cross-trained agent and a baggage handler for American Airlines at the Piedmont station. Matter of fact, I'd like you
All
to
right.
include it. I want American Airlines. They haven't responded. Piedmont hasn't really responded. I wrote to Robert Isom, the CEO of American Airlines. I got a read receipt from him and 10 people in his org chart. They don't want anything to do with this. They're afraid of Rachel.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of me. They're not afraid of the podcast. They're afraid of her because she's capable of a lawsuit or inflicting whatever sort of damage crazy people inflict.
She's unpredictable. Do you still keep in touch with Mark at this point?
I talked to Mark yesterday. There's a part of me that can't wait to be done with this, and to wipe my hands of all of it and not have to have anyone from that period of time in my life, from a mental health perspective. But my heart breaks for Mark. You know, anytime someone says, I'm so sorry about what happened to you, I go, don't be sorry about me. Be sorry about Mark. He spent 22 years married to a woman and had 4 kids and loved her more than anything and gave her everything. And I portrayed him as an asshole, and I thought in my head he was an asshole. And boy, was I wrong about Mark. So feel badly for that guy. And my heart breaks for him.
You are currently in like the double-digit episodes of season 2. Like, what's coming up next? Like, where does this story go, and when do you get to wipe your hands clean from this?
I have an interview coming up with the woman who turned me on to the guy Rachel had an affair with in 2011. That she faked that cancer and the near-death experience with. She actually lived with Rachel and Mark. She's got some great first-hand insight. So I've got an interview with her. I'm waiting to hear from the guy she had the affair with. He and I have talked. That'll be an interview. And then, quite honestly, I'm thinking that if nothing else happens to report regarding the court case with Mark and Rachel, and I think there'll be at least one more of those episodes, the last episode is going to be this tape I have, an hour recording of Mark and Rachel, where Rachel is just admitting to everything she's done. It's almost like being able to say, you want the receipts, you want the biggest receipt.
Wow.
Here's the biggest receipt. Here's Rachel on tape saying, I don't know why I cheated. I just feel badly about myself. I want it.
And this will be the first time we hear her, right? Her actual voice.
Yeah, I've put a couple of I put one clip from it in a promo.
But you've been using
and
recreations, right? Yeah.
I use AI. The folks that are listening, the voice you're hearing is Rachel's. It's done through AI, and the only other thing I'm thinking about doing as an episode is that I did an interview with Mark on TikTok Live one night about 45 days ago, and it's a second interview a year later. More information, more questions. And that's going to be out there.
You've captured this moment for listeners. I mean, and I read your reviews. I think it's kind of interesting. And I wonder if you read your reviews. You know, people, hell, you should read my reviews. Everybody has an opinion on how you should tell a story. But I think that if you look at it from, this is like this is a moment in your time that you captured, and you captured it to the best of your ability, probably even more in depth than you even realized you were going to cover it in. And I think that's really unique, and I really respect the work that you've done, man.
Thank you for that very much. There are 2 schools of thought on this. A lot of people that write, listen, I think there are a lot of friends that are friends of Rachel, not friends of mine, writing some of those reviews. It's clear.
Yeah.
And that
there's always going to be that. Yeah.
And I try not to read them. Although there's one review that was written about me once at the beginning that I saved. It literally is on my desk here somewhere. And it's when I was on the Drew Lane show at the beginning of the podcast, and the guy said, "Hey Drew, great interview, but Harry is a douchebag." And I thought, you know what I mean? To me, it just makes me laugh to see.
Who are these people?
Like, here's the thing. Yeah, they're keyboard warriors. It's fine. You want to hate? Exactly. You want to hate? Go ahead and hate. So one of the things that is tough for people to do, we all multitask. And this is a podcast that you can't be watching a television show or cooking dinner and listening to something else while I'm telling my story. I always say to people, there's so much to this story that I want you to listen to one at a time. Just lay down.
Go on a long drive.
Let me tell you a story.
Go on a long walk. Yeah.
That's right. And you don't know how many people, like I have a therapist friend of mine who I'm doing some work with on TikTok, and she said, my partner has listened to every episode twice, and here are her notes. And she showed me 3 8.5 by 11 pages of notes and questions. So people are, if you pay attention to it, there's a lot to grab. And the only reason I wrote it like I wrote it is because when I wrote it, I wasn't writing a podcast.
It actually feels like an audiobook.
I was throwing, I was throwing up.
Yeah.
It was word vomit, right? So thank you for that. It means an unbelievable amount,
I think
especially
it's,
coming from you.
You know,
And
this space is so polluted with podcasts now, but there's very few quality podcasts, and so when you encounter one, you should definitely take time to listen. I think this was great work, man, and I hope all you listening today will check it out. I mean, this, even though we told you a lot, we spoiled a lot for you. There's nothing like actually hearing it yourself, because it is a very different. We told it a different way today in this episode.
Yeah.
This is more like the documentary behind the scenes type of stuff, but you almost have to hear Harry's experience going through this.
And by the way, when you hear the podcast, you're going to hear a score, the sound design like a movie. A guy named Andrew Reagan, who's a composer and a small filmmaker. I found out in like episode 8 of season 1 when I asked him, I said, "How do you capture my sadness so well? You must have this unbelievable library of music." And you know what he said to me? It blew me away. He said, "I score every episode, just like they do a movie with an orchestra, but it's just me." And I was blown away that he sits at his keyboard and just plays based on my words. It's beautiful to me. It's one of the most moving things. If you hear it without the music and then you hear the music, you go, "Oh my God, how sad is this?"
It definitely adds to the experience, man. But this is cool. I can't wait to see what you do after this. I mean, it would be nice for you to walk away from this and put it behind you. I know you have like a new partner and you're ready to move on with your life. It would be cool to see what your next creative project will be.
I got some true crime stuff up my sleeve. I got a couple projects I'm working on, so I don't think you have seen the last of me. I think you and I will be
you
talking
let me know when
again
those
at some point.
pop up. I'll be happy to promote it on my show.
We won't publish an episode next week during Christmas week, but we will have one the following week, and that'll be another interview. This interview is with a woman that met Rachel when she moved to Los Angeles from Houston in 2001. She provides what I think is some valuable insight into Rachel's behavior while she was working at the Silver Rain in Los Angeles. While she was with Mark and married to Mark, she witnessed Rachel with Bobby, with a lawyer that's still working in Los Angeles, and a long-term affair with a Hollywood television producer that's still working in Los Angeles today. That'll be next time on The Messenger, the Rachel Cancer Scam.